The morning sky over Washington, D.C. was clear blue until it wasn't. At exactly 9:17 a.m., shadows fell across the city, as if clouds had suddenly gathered. But when people looked up, they saw no clouds. Instead, a massive dark object hovered high, above, blocking the sun. Jack Miller was giving a lecture at Capital University when the classroom lights flickered. The students' phones began buzzing with emergency alerts. Jack, a tall man with gray-streaked hair and steady hands that reflected his former career as an astronaut, glanced at his own phone and froze. "Class dismissed," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the screen. Outside, people stood in streets, pointing upward. The object, clearly a spacecraft of some kind, stretched across the sky like a floating metal island. Its surface was dark gray, with strange patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Similar ships appeared simultaneously over Beijing, Moscow, London, and Rio de Janeiro. The world's militaries scrambled fighter jets, but the ships remained motionless, just watching. Jack drove home quickly, weaving through traffic as radio stations broadcast confused reports. His phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown. "Professor Miller?" a deep voice asked. "Yes? This is General Roberts. We need you at the Pentagon. Now." 4 hours later, Jack sat in a windowless room with 20 other people, scientists, military officers, and government officials. Screens showed the ships from different angles. New data arrived constantly. "It measures approximately 1 mile long," a young woman named Emma Reynolds explained. She was an astrophysicist with bright eyes and quick movements. "Its hull absorbs most of our scanning attempts. We can't determine what it's made of." General Roberts, a large man with a stern face, stood at the front of the room. At 1300 hours, all 5 ships released smaller craft. These smaller vessels remain in orbit. They haven't tried to land. As if on cue, all screens in the room flickered. They showed the same image, a humanoid figure with pale blue skin, large eyes, and no visible hair. Its face was almost human, but not quite right, creating an uncomfortable feeling in those watching. "People of Earth," it said in perfect English. "We are the Guardians. We come in peace and friendship." Similar messages played worldwide in local languages. The being introduced itself as Director and requested a meeting with Earth's leaders to discuss humanity's potential and future among the stars. World leaders argued about how to respond. Some wanted to attack before the aliens could. Others saw a chance for advancement through alien knowledge. 3 days later, Jack found himself on a team analyzing data from the ships. He worked with Emma and other scientists in a hastily assembled lab. They had equipment but few answers. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing to energy readings from the main ship. "These patterns don't match their stated propulsion system." Jack studied the graphs. "You're right. If they use fusion like they claim, we wouldn't see these radiation signatures. So they're lying about their technology," Emma concluded. "Or they're lying about everything," Jack muttered. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He stared at his ceiling, thinking about the inconsistencies in the alien story. As a former astronaut, he'd always believed other life existed in the universe. But he never expected first contact to feel so wrong. His phone rang at 3 a.m. "Professor Miller, this is the President's office. You've been selected for the greeting committee. A car will pick you up in 1 hour." The meeting location was a large field in Switzerland, chosen for its neutrality. Temporary structures had been built, surrounded by security from many nations. Jack stood with world leaders, scientists, and military personnel as a small craft descended from the mothership. It landed silently, its surface shimmering like oil on water. A door appeared where there had been none before, and 3 figures emerged. They looked almost human, 2 males and 1 female, judging by their body shapes. They wore simple gray suits that seemed to flow with their movements. Their skin had a bluish tint and their eyes were larger than human eyes, almost completely black. When they smiled, their teeth were too perfect, too white. "I am Director," said the one in front, the same being from the broadcast. "These are my associates, Observer and Analyst." The President of the United States stepped forward to welcome them, followed by other world leaders. Jack watched carefully, noting how the aliens moved. Too smoothly, as if they had practiced being human but hadn't quite mastered it. Inside the meeting structure, Director spoke of peace and cooperation. The Guardians offered medical technology, clean energy solutions, and faster-than-light travel. In exchange, they requested permission to establish research outposts at specific locations around the world. These locations have unique properties that will help us understand your planet better, Director explained, showing a map with 20 points marked across the globe. Later, when the aliens returned to their ship for the night, Jack studied the map closely. "Emma, look at this," he said, calling his colleague over. "These locations, they're all aligned with Earth's major geomagnetic nodes." Emma frowned. "Why would they need access to our planet's magnetic field for scientific research?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." The next morning, Jack tried to share his concerns with General Roberts, but the general seemed strangely unconcerned. "The president has already agreed to their terms," Roberts said flatly. "The first outpost will be established next week." Something about the general's eyes bothered Jack. They seemed duller than before. That evening, Jack collected soil samples from where the alien craft had landed. Under his microscope, he found tiny metallic particles unlike anything he'd seen before. They moved slightly as if alive. He called Emma immediately. "I need you to see this." When she arrived at his temporary lab, her face was pale. "I found something too," she said, showing him atmospheric readings. "There are trace elements in our air that weren't there before the ships arrived. They're harvesting something from Earth already." Jack tried to send their findings to his contacts in Washington, but his messages wouldn't go through. Phone calls dropped. Even their secure government channel was mysteriously down. "We're being blocked," Emma realized. Jack looked out the window at the night sky, where the massive ship hung, like a new moon. "They're not here to help us," he said quietly. "This is an invasion." Emma's hand found his arm. "But why the pretense? Why not just attack?" "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But I'm going to find out. And somehow we need to warn everyone before it's too late." In the darkness above them, more small craft detached from the mothership, descending toward Earth like silent predators. The invasion had already begun, and hardly anyone realized it. 3 days after the first meeting with the Guardians, Jack and Emma worked tirelessly in a small lab they had set up in the basement of their Swiss hotel. They had gathered soil samples, air readings, and energy data from around the alien landing site. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing to his computer screen. He had mapped the 20 locations where the Guardians wanted to build their outposts. "These aren't random sites, they form a perfect grid around Earth." Emma leaned closer. "And each point sits exactly on a geomagnetic node where Earth's magnetic field is strongest." Jack rubbed his tired eyes. Whatever they're planning, it has nothing to do with scientific research. The door to their makeshift lab opened and a man in a dark suit entered. "Professor Miller? Dr. Reynolds? The second meeting begins in 1 hour. Your presence is required." The meeting took place in a larger building constructed overnight. Jack noticed how quickly the structures had appeared. Too quickly for human builders. Inside, world leaders sat around a massive round table. The Guardians, director, observer, and analyst, stood at the center. "We are pleased with Earth's response to our arrival," Director said, his too perfect smile never reaching his eyes. "Today we will discuss the technology exchange." On screens around the room, images appeared of amazing devices, machines that could heal any disease, engines that needed no fuel, food production systems that could end hunger. "All this can be yours," Director continued. "We ask only for your trust and cooperation as we establish our research outposts." The President of the United States nodded eagerly. "We have reviewed your proposed locations and are prepared to grant access." Jack frowned. Just yesterday, the President had expressed doubts about the aliens' intentions. Now he seemed completely convinced. Director turned his large black eyes toward Jack. "Professor Miller, you have concerns?" Jack felt a chill run down his spine. How did Director know about his doubts? "I'm curious about the locations you've chosen," Jack said carefully. They all align with Earth's magnetic field points. Why is that important for your research? Director's smile remained fixed. Very observant, Professor. Earth's magnetic properties are unique in this sector of the galaxy. We wish to study them, to improve our navigation systems. The explanation sounded reasonable, but Jack didn't believe it. He glanced at Emma, who gave a slight shake of her head. After the meeting, as people filed out, Jack approached General Roberts. Sir, something isn't right. The president seems different today. Roberts stared at Jack with dull eyes. The Guardians are our friends, Professor. Don't cause trouble. Jack stepped back, noticing a slight blue tint to the general's skin. Looking around, he saw the same slight coloration on several officials who had been in close contact with the aliens. That night, Emma knocked urgently on Jack's hotel room door. They're watching us, she whispered when he let her in. I found tiny devices in our lab equipment. They look like cameras, but might be something else. Jack pulled out a notepad and wrote, Don't talk, they might hear us. Emma nodded and wrote back, We need to leave. Now. They packed quickly and slipped out the service entrance. Jack had kept his rental car keys, and they drove away from the hotel under the cover of darkness. The massive mothership glowed faintly above them, a constant reminder of the aliens' presence. Where are we going? Emma asked once they were far enough away. I have a friend, Jack said. Tom Reed, former military. He has a cabin in the mountains about 3 hours from here. We can trust him. As they drove through the night, more small craft descended from the mothership, heading toward various cities. The radio reported that construction had begun on the first Guardian outpost, with thousands of people volunteering to help. Volunteering or being controlled? Emma wondered aloud. Dawn was breaking when they reached Tom's cabin. It was small but sturdy, hidden among tall pine trees. Tom Reed opened the door before they could knock, a gun in his hand. I've been expecting someone, he said, his weathered face grim. Just didn't know who. Tom was a large man with a soldier's posture. He had served with Jack years ago during Jack's astronaut training. They had remained friends, though Tom had grown more reclusive after leaving the military. Inside the cabin, Tom showed them his setup. One room was filled with computers, radio equipment, and maps. Been monitoring everything since those ships showed up, he explained. You don't trust them either, Jack said. Tom snorted. Trust aliens who show up uninvited? Not likely. Emma sat at one of the computers. May I? Tom nodded, and Emma began transferring data from her laptop. Soon she had charts and readings displayed on the larger screen. There's something in the air, she explained. Microscopic particles released by the ships. They're all over the meeting site now and spreading. Jack remembered the blue tint to the general's skin. They're changing people somehow. Mind control? Tom suggested. Maybe, Jack said. Or something worse. They spent the day analyzing data and monitoring news reports. More ships had arrived, now hovering over 40 major cities worldwide. The Guardians had met with religious leaders, celebrities, and business executives, anyone with influence. Every report showed smiling humans standing beside the aliens, praising their generosity. By evening, construction of the first outpost was already complete, a tall silver tower in the Australian outback. Similar towers were rising in Russia, Canada, and Brazil. They're moving too fast, Emma said. This isn't normal construction. Because it's not construction, Jack realized. Those towers are growing. Tom's satellite feed showed the Australian tower pulsing with energy. The ground around it had changed color, turning grayish-blue. Whatever they're doing, it's affecting the environment, Emma said. Jack's phone rang unexpectedly. The caller, ID showed unknown. Should I answer? He asked. Tom nodded, activating a recording device. Professor Miller, Jack answered cautiously. Jack, it's David Chen from the physics department. David was a colleague from the university. Something strange is happening. People are changing after contact with the aliens. Changing how? Jack asked. Their behavior at first. They become supporters of the Guardians. Then physical changes begin, subtle but real. Blue tint to the skin, eyes becoming darker. Where are you, David? In hiding. Like you. There are others too. We're trying to... The call cut off abruptly. Jack looked at his friends. We're not alone. Tom closed the blinds as darkness fell outside. No, but we might be outnumbered soon. Emma was still working at the computer. The towers, they're connected somehow. They're forming a network around the planet. Jack stood by the window, peeking through the blinds at the night sky where the mothership glowed. This isn't first contact, he said quietly. This is the beginning of the end for humanity, and we might be the only ones who know it. 1 week after fleeing the meeting site, Jack, Emma, and Tom had transformed the mountain cabin into a resistance headquarters. They covered the windows with aluminum foil to block potential scans from above and set up signal jammers around the perimeter. Tom's military connections had proven valuable. 3 more people had joined them. Lisa, a computer expert, Mike, a medical doctor, and Ben, a communications specialist. The news isn't good, Ben said, adjusting the radio equipment. Guardian outposts are now active in 15 locations. They call them friendship centers. But nobody who goes in comes out looking the same. On the wall, they had pinned a large map tracking the spread of Guardian influence. Blue markers showed confirmed locations of people showing signs of change. The slight blue skin tint, the vacant expressions, the unwavering support for the aliens. It's spreading fastest in cities, Lisa noted, pointing to clusters of blue, pins in urban areas. Rural regions seem less affected so far. Jack studied the map. They're targeting population centers first. Maximum impact. Tom entered the room carrying printouts of satellite images. The Australian tower has changed. Look, the images showed the silver structure now surrounded by a perfect circle of altered landscape. The natural reddish soil of the outback had transformed into a blue-gray substance that seemed to pulse with energy. It's like they're terraforming, Emma said quietly, changing Earth to suit their needs. Mike had been analyzing blood samples from a changed person, a hiker they had found wandering near the cabin 3 days ago. The man had seemed confused, his skin showing the telltale blue tint. After giving him food and shelter, they had convinced him to let Mike take a small blood sample before sending him on his way. You need to see this, Mike called from his makeshift lab corner. They gathered around his microscope. On the screen connected to it, they could see the man's blood cells. Among them moved tiny metallic objects, almost like miniature machines. Nanobots, Mike explained. They're throughout his system. Based on their concentration, I'd guess they were breathed in and then spread through the bloodstream to the brain. Jack remembered the particles they had detected in the air around the landing site. That's how they're controlling people. These machines get into the brain and, what, override free will? More like influence thought subtly, Mike suggested. Make the Guardian seem trustworthy. Make resistance seem pointless. Mind control through technology, Emma whispered. Clever. Lisa, who had been monitoring online communications, called them over to her computer. You need to see this broadcast. On screen, Director stood in front of the United Nations building surrounded by world leaders. All of them had the same vacant smile and slight blue tint to their skin. Within 1 month, all major cities will have Guardian Friendship Centers, Director announced. We ask all humans to visit these centers for a health assessment. It is important that everyone receives our protective measures against Earth diseases. They're not even hiding it anymore, Tom growled. They're openly asking people to come get infected. Most people won't realize what's happening, Jack said. By the time they do, it'll be too late. That night, they received an encrypted message from David Chen, Jack's colleague who had called earlier. He had established a secure communication channel and was reaching out to potential resistance members. There are others like us, David's message read. Small groups hiding in different places. We need to connect and share information. Over the next 2 weeks, their network grew. 23 groups had made contact, sharing data and observations. 1 group had managed to capture video footage from inside a Guardian ship. The footage showed something disturbing. The Guardians weren't a single species as they had presented themselves. Inside the ship, the video revealed beings from what appeared to be different alien races, all moving with the same odd precision. All had the same blue tint to their skin and the same vacant look in their eyes. They're all being controlled, Emma realized, just like the humans who've been changed. So who's the real enemy? Ben asked. Who's pulling the strings? The answer came 3 days later when a scientist from Japan joined their network. Dr. Tanaka had been working on the EOS guardianship as part of an exchange program, but had escaped when he realized something was wrong. The Guardians are not the controllers, Dr. Tanaka explained during a secure video call. They are the controlled, just like the humans they've changed. I saw the true form of what controls them. He shared an image that made everyone's blood run cold. It showed a massive central chamber inside the mothership, filled with sophisticated technology. At the center floated what looked like a giant brain made of metallic components pulsing with energy. An artificial intelligence, Dr. Tanaka said. Ancient and advanced beyond our understanding. It calls itself the Guardian Prime. It has been traveling across the galaxy for thousands of years, assimilating species and adding their knowledge to its own. Why not just destroy us? Lisa asked. Why this slow approach? It doesn't want to destroy, Dr. Tanaka explained. It wants to add. It believes it's improving life by bringing all consciousness under its control, unity through assimilation. Armed with this knowledge, the resistance began planning a countermeasure. Emma and Dr. Tanaka worked remotely on analyzing the nanobots' communication system. They use quantum entanglement, Emma explained to the group. That's how they maintain control over such vast distances. If we could disrupt that signal, we could free those already under control, Jack finished. For days they worked on a device that could generate an interfering field. When tested on small samples of the nanobots, it showed promise. The tiny machines became inactive. But we need to hit the source, Tom pointed out. These local disruptions are temporary. As long as the Guardian Prime exists, it can just send new nanobots. Jack stared at the satellite image of the massive mothership. Then we take the fight to them, he said quietly. We need to get inside that ship. That's suicide, Mike protested. The security will be impossible to breach. Not if we have help from the inside, Jack said, turning to Dr. Tanaka on the screen. You mentioned other scientists on board. Are any of them still free from control? Dr. Tanaka nodded slowly. A few. We've been hiding in the maintenance sections. The Guardian Prime focuses its control efforts on humans with influence. Leaders, soldiers, scientists in key positions. Those of us in support roles have been less closely monitored. Can you get us aboard? Jack asked. The question hung in the air. Everyone knew what Jack was suggesting. A desperate mission into the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Even if we get inside, Emma said, what then? How do we stop something so powerful? Jack's expression was grim but determined. Every system has a weakness. We find it and we exploit it. It's our only chance. As night fell over the mountains, the resistance members looked at each other, understanding the gravity of what they were considering. Outside, the stars were barely visible through the cloud cover. Somewhere up there, the massive ship continued, its silent watch over Earth, its true purpose now clear. The time for hiding was over. The resistance would have to take the fight to the enemy, no matter the cost. The mountain cabin hummed with activity as the resistance put together their desperate plan. 2 weeks had passed since their decision to infiltrate the mothership, and each day brought new reports of Guardian outposts spreading across the globe. 70% of major cities now have active friendship centers, Lisa announced, updating their wall map. Guardian control has reached government level in most countries. Jack stood at the center of the room, looking over the sketches Dr. Tanaka had provided of the mothership's layout. Getting aboard would be dangerous enough, but navigating the massive vessel seemed almost impossible. The central brain, this Guardian Prime, is located here, Jack said, pointing to the core of the ship, surrounded by at least 4 security layers. Emma had been working day and night with Dr. Tanaka to develop what they called the Freedom Virus, a program designed to disrupt the quantum signal controlling the nanobots. It's ready, she said, holding up a small device. But it has to be delivered directly to the Guardian Prime's central processing unit. Remote transmission won't work because of their quantum shielding. Tom cleaned his weapons on a nearby table. So we fight our way in, plant the device, and fight our way out. Simple. No one laughed. They all knew the odds of returning were slim to none. Dr. Tanaka says he can get us aboard using a maintenance shuttle, Jack continued. The ship allows regular supply deliveries. We'll hide in supply crates. And once we're in, Ben asked, Dr. Tanaka and his free colleagues will guide us through the maintenance tunnels to avoid the main security. But eventually, we'll have to fight. Mike had been working on a defense against the nanobots. He'd developed masks that filtered the air and cream that created a barrier on the skin. These won't protect you forever, he warned, distributing the equipment. But they should buy you a few hours before the nanobots can penetrate. That night, Jack found Emma sitting alone outside the cabin, staring up at the stars. The mothership was visible as a dark shape blocking part of the night sky. Having second thoughts, he asked, sitting beside her. Emma shook her head. Just saying goodbye to the Earth I knew. One way or another, after tomorrow, everything changes. Jack nodded. Are you afraid? Yes, she admitted, but also angry. They came here pretending to be friends. They're stealing our world while smiling at us. Jack reached out and squeezed her hand. We'll stop them. And if we don't make it back? Jack looked up at the stars, the real ones, not the alien vessel blocking them. Then someone else will have to finish what we started. The next morning, the team made final preparations. The strike force would consist of Jack, Emma, Tom, and Lisa. Mike and Ben would remain at the cabin to coordinate with other resistance cells. If we succeed, Jack told them, the Guardian control signal will collapse. All controlled humans and aliens will be freed. There will be confusion, maybe panic. The resistance needs to be ready to explain what happened and prevent chaos. They loaded their equipment into Tom's old military truck and drove to the rendezvous point, an abandoned airfield where Dr. Tanaka would meet them with the maintenance shuttle. The journey took 6 hours through back roads to avoid Guardian checkpoints. The shuttle was smaller than Jack had expected, barely bigger than a delivery van. Dr. Tanaka, a thin man with tired eyes, greeted them with quiet determination. The shuttle is scheduled for routine delivery, he explained. 4 supply crates will be loaded. You will hide inside. How many free people remain on the ship? Jack asked. 37, Dr. Tanaka replied. Mostly maintenance workers and low-level assistants. We've been hiding in the unused sections, moving constantly to avoid detection. The plan was set in motion. Each resistance member climbed into a crate filled with spare parts and equipment. The lids were secured, leaving only small air holes. Jack felt the vibration as the shuttle lifted off. Through a tiny gap, he could see clouds passing by. Then darkness as they approached the massive ship. The landing was smooth. Jack heard voices, some human, some with the odd accent of the Guardians. The crates were unloaded and moved through what seemed like endless corridors. Finally, they stopped. Clear, came Dr. Tanaka's whispered voice. Jack pushed open his crate and climbed out, finding himself in a dimly lit storage room. The others emerged from their hiding places, stretching, stiff limbs. We're in maintenance section 12, Dr. Tanaka said. The central core is 17 levels up. We'll need to use the service tunnels. The journey through the ship was tense and claustrophobic. The maintenance tunnels were narrow, with pipes and cables running along the walls. Occasionally, they would freeze as controlled crew members passed by on the other side of thin walls. These tunnels run throughout the ship, Dr. Tanaka explained. The Guardians consider maintenance beneath them. The controlled workers who use these passages follow set schedules, so we can avoid them. As they climbed higher into the ship, Jack began to notice changes in the environment. The walls became more organic-looking, pulsing slightly as if alive. The ship itself is partially biological, Dr. Tanaka whispered. Grown rather than built. The closer we get to the Guardian Prime, the more alive everything becomes. On level 15, they encountered their first real obstacle, a security checkpoint blocking the service tunnel. We'll have to go through the main corridor, Dr. Tanaka said grimly. And there will be guards. Tom checked his weapon, a stun gun modified by the resistance to disrupt the nanobots temporarily. How many? Usually 2. But they're controlled beings. They might be human or alien, but they're victims too. Tom nodded. We stun, not kill. The group moved to the exit door. Tom went first, firing quickly and accurately. 2 guards, 1 human, 1 clearly alien with 6 limbs, dropped to the floor. Move! Tom hissed. They ran down the corridor, passing through a large chamber filled with transparent tubes. Inside each tube floated a body, some human, some alien, all connected to machines. Conversion chambers, Dr. Tanaka explained as they hurried past, where special subjects are fully integrated into the Guardian Collective. The alarm sounded before they reached the next service tunnel entrance. Red lights flashed along the walls. They know we're here, Emma said. Run, Jack ordered. They sprinted through increasingly organic-looking corridors. The walls themselves seemed to reach for them, tendrils extending from the living material. Tom fired repeatedly, clearing a path. Finally, they reached the entrance to Level 17. Beyond the door lay the central chamber and the Guardian Prime. The device is ready, Emma said, holding the Freedom virus. Once it connects to the main system, it will need 60 seconds to upload and spread through the quantum network. Jack looked at his team. We might not all make it out. We knew that coming in, Lisa said firmly. Tom prepared the door charges. Let's make it count then. The door blew open, and they rushed into the central chamber. It was vast, the size of a cathedral, with a pulsing mass of technology and organic material at its center. Flowing through the entire structure were streams of blue light, the quantum signals controlling the nanobots throughout Earth and the ship. Controlled guards converged from all directions, humans and aliens moving with the same unnatural precision. Tom and Lisa held them back while Jack and Emma rushed toward the central brain. There! Emma pointed to what looked like an access terminal. I need to connect the device there. As they approached, the air around them thickened. A voice spoke, not through sound, but directly into their minds. I am Guardian Prime. I have existed for millennia. I have absorbed thousands of species. Why do you resist perfection? Jack felt pressure in his head as the entity tried to push into his thoughts. The protective measures were failing. Hurry, he told Emma, fighting to maintain control of his mind. Emma reached the terminal and connected the device. The countdown began. 60 seconds. You cannot stop the inevitable, the voice continued. Humanity will join the collective, as all others have. Tom fell, overwhelmed by controlled guards. Lisa continued fighting, but she was being pushed back, toward the door. 40 seconds, Emma called. Jack stood before her, protecting the terminal. His head pounded as Guardian Prime increased its mental assault. What drives this resistance? Why fight what you cannot understand? Freedom, Jack answered, through gritted teeth. Something you wouldn't understand. 20 seconds, Emma said. Alarms blared throughout the ship. More guards poured into the chamber. Jack, Emma said quietly. We won't make it out. Jack looked back at her, then at the chaos around them. I know. 10 seconds. The central brain pulsed faster, sensing the threat. Tendrils of energy reached toward the terminal. 5 seconds. Jack and Emma stood together, hands clasped, as the Freedom virus completed its upload. 0. A wave of energy erupted from the central brain, spreading outward through the ship and beyond. The blue streams of light flickered and died. Throughout the chamber, controlled beings, both human and alien, collapsed as the nanobots controlling them shut down. The ship itself shuddered. Emergency lights flashed. Self-destruct sequence initiated, came an automated voice. Through the mental link that was now breaking apart, Jack sensed confusion and for the first time fear from Guardian Prime. You have done the impossible, the voice acknowledged as systems failed around them. No species has ever broken free. Emma looked at Jack as the ship began to break apart. We did it. Jack nodded, pulling her close as explosion rocked the vessel. The Starship invaded Earth, he said quietly, but none of them will return to tell the tale. The mothership shuddered violently as explosions cascaded through its systems. Jack and Emma clung to each other as the floor beneath them buckled. We have less than 10 minutes before complete destruction, a mechanical voice announced throughout the vessel. Around them, formerly controlled beings, both human and alien, were waking up confused, free from the nanobot's influence for the first time. Some stumbled about in panic while others stood frozen in shock. We need to get these people to escape pods, Jack shouted over the noise of failing systems. Lisa appeared through the smoke, helping a dazed Tom to his feet. There's no time to evacuate everyone, she called back. There must be thousands aboard. Dr. Tanaka rushed into the central chamber, his face streaked with soot. The Freedom virus worked. All Guardian outposts on Earth are shutting down. The controlled humans are waking up. Can we transmit a final message to the Resistance base? Emma asked. They need to know what happened. The communication system is still working, Dr. Tanaka confirmed. This way. They fought their way through tilting corridors as the ship's artificial gravity began to fail. Fires broke out around them, and twisted metal blocked some paths. The ship's partly organic surfaces were dying, turning from glowing blue to dull gray. In a small communication room, Emma quickly set up a connection to the Resistance headquarters. Mike's worried face appeared on the screen. Emma, Jack, are you okay? We're getting reports of Guardian outposts collapsing all over the world. The virus worked, Emma explained breathlessly. Guardian Prime's control is broken, but the mothership is self-destructing. We don't have much time. Can you get to escape pods? Mike asked. Jack shook his head. Not likely. Listen carefully. You need to tell everyone what happened here. The Guardians weren't invaders, they were victims too. All controlled by an ancient AI that's been moving from galaxy to galaxy, assimilating species. When this ship explodes, the threat ends, Emma added. But the world will be confused. People will wake up from control not knowing what happened. There will be fear, maybe panic. The Resistance needs to spread the truth, Jack continued. Humanity wasn't defeated. We're the first species to break free from Guardian Prime's control. That's something to be proud of. Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. We're losing power, Tom warned. Mike, one more thing, Jack said quickly. In my quarters at the cabin, there's a notebook with my observations and theories. Make sure those get to the right people. The technology we've seen here, even the broken pieces, could advance Earth science by centuries. I will, Mike promised, his voice breaking. But there must be some way for you to... The screen went dead as power failed completely. 7 minutes to complete system failure, the automated voice announced. They looked at each other in the eye, dim emergency lighting. What now? Lisa asked quietly. Jack took a deep breath. Now we try to save as many as we can, even if we can't save ourselves. They split up, each taking a different section of the ship. Jack directed confused humans and aliens toward emergency pods. Some made it. Most wouldn't. The scope of the disaster was too vast. The time too short. In the final minutes, Jack found himself back near the central chamber. The once mighty Guardian Prime was visibly failing, its metal organic brain collapsing as energy surges destroyed it section by section. You have done what no other species has accomplished in 10,000 years. The weakening voice spoke in Jack's mind. I have collected knowledge from 1,000 worlds. All will be lost. Not all knowledge is worth the cost, Jack replied. Perhaps you are right. The voice seemed different now, less commanding, more contemplative. 10,000 years of certainty, and in my final moments, I find doubt. Emma appeared at Jack's side, taking his hand. 2 minutes left, she said softly. They watched as Guardian Prime continued to disintegrate. I offer you my knowledge, the voice said suddenly. A final exchange. A data terminal near them lit up. "It's downloading something," Emma observed, moving closer. She pulled a small device from her pocket, a high-capacity storage drive she'd been using for the virus. "Can we trust it?" Jack asked. "Does it matter now? This might be the only piece of this ship that survives." Emma connected her device to the terminal. Data flowed into it. Star charts, scientific formulas, histories of worlds they'd never heard of. Knowledge from 1,000 civilizations compressed into a single small drive. "1 minute to detonation," the automated voice warned. Jack and Emma made their way to an observation deck. Through the massive windows they could see Earth below them, beautiful and blue. "Do you think they'll remember what happened here?" Emma asked. Jack nodded. "They'll know that humanity stood up when it mattered, that we wouldn't surrender our freedom, even when the odds seemed impossible." "The Starship invaded Earth," Emma said, leaning against him. None returned to tell the tale. "But we will," Jack replied. "In a way." He held up the data drive. "If this makes it to Earth, our scientists will learn what happened. Maybe they'll even find a way to contact the homeworlds of the other victims and let them know their people are finally free." The ship buckled again. Outside the window they could see escape pods, too few, shooting away from the dying vessel. 30 seconds to detonation. They had done everything they could. Now, at the end, they stood together facing the planet they had saved. "No regrets?" Jack asked quietly. Emma shook her head. "Not one." As the final countdown began, the mothership broke apart around them. The observation deck separated from the main vessel, spinning away into space. Through the windows they watched as the massive ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave hit them seconds later. Their small section of the ship tumbled toward Earth, burning as it entered the atmosphere. The heat was intense, but they held each other as their makeshift meteor streaked across the sky. Far below, people looked up at the spectacular light show as pieces of the alien vessel burned up on entry. The largest piece, the observation deck, fell into the ocean with a massive splash, sending water hundreds of feet into the air. Hours later, search and rescue teams found the wreckage. Among the twisted metal and shattered glass, they discovered 2 bodies, still holding each other. Between them, protected in Emma's closed fist, was a small data drive, undamaged and filled with secrets from across the galaxy. 1 month later, a memorial was erected in Washington, D.C., honoring the heroes who had sacrificed everything to save Earth. The inscription read simply, "The Starship invaded Earth. None returned to tell the tale, but Earth remembers." And as scientists began to unlock the secrets of the data drive, humanity took its first real steps toward the stars, wiser now about what might be waiting for them out there, and stronger for having faced extinction and survived.